where the only sound is roaring engines and screaming chainsaws. We're not just cutting wood, we're fighting a battle with every massive tree. Blood, sweat, and sawdust. Welcome to the world of chainsaws. Welcome to the world of Wood Channel. Deep in the forest, a worker used a chainsaw to cut down a large tree. Then, with a long saw blade, he split the tree trunk lengthwise into evenly spaced planks right in the middle of the forest. A forester hangs from a tall, snow-covered tree, exposed to the icy wind. He starts his chainsaw and cuts away the frost-covered treetop. Branches fall, leaving a gap between the gray sky and the silent, snowy forest. In a large yard, a large tree has been securely tied with crisscross ropes from its trunk to various anchor points. A worker starts a chainsaw, the blade screeching loudly, digging deep into the trunk. Once the cut is complete, the ropes hold the tree down in the right direction, gently and controlled. A professional scene, demonstrating safe tree cutting techniques. In front of a giant ancient tree standing tall in the middle of the old forest, the worker started working with a powerful steel chainsaw. He made a neat cut on the front of the tree trunk. Then, he used a hydraulic jack placed behind it to slightly lift the trunk, reducing the pressure on the saw blade.
Okay. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Next, he placed a steel wedge in the cut and used a large hammer to continuously hit it. Each hammer blow echoed loudly. The tree trunk began to shake, emitting a long cracking sound. A final hammer blow or saw cut sent the 100-year-old ancient tree crashing to the ground with a thunderous sound, shaking the entire forest.
Watch the deadlift.
The massive log is lifted onto a sturdy steel platform, like laying a giant onto an industrial operating table. This setup not only secures the log, but elevates it to the perfect height, where the saw blade can strike with maximum efficiency and precision. A thick layer of snow blankets the timber, reflecting the pale light of the winter forest. But in the hands of a skilled worker and under the power of a razor-sharp chainsaw, the frozen log is quickly segmented into evenly sized rounds. With each piercing scream of the blade, the wood yields smoothly, clean cuts made with force and finesse, as if even the frost must surrender to steel and human will. Workers used chainsaws to cut deep into the trunk of a large, charred tree. Sawdust flew, the tree shook and fell down. In the middle of a snowy forest, a worker wearing thick protective gear used a chainsaw to cut deep into a large tree covered in ice. Each cut echoed in the cold air, sending sawdust and snow flying everywhere. middle of the dense forest, a giant tree stood tall amidst the green foliage. A worker wearing protective gear and a hard hat approached the tree trunk with a chainsaw in hand. He carefully checked the direction of the fall, then started the machine. The roar of the saw echoed throughout the forest, the sharp blade cutting deep into the old wood. Sawdust flew into the humid air. The tree trunk began to shake. The moment the giant tree fell was dramatic.
Man, we got a little bit.
A massive log lies across the timber yard like a sleeping giant. The chainsaw is fired up, its roar echoing like the beginning of a new battle. With firm grip and trained hands, the man guides the blade into the log, slicing it cleanly into even sections. The wood grain appears, raw and beautiful, after each precise cut. Once the sawing is done, he grabs a heavy axe and begins splitting the pieces. Each powerful swing cracks the dense wood with authority. It's a perfect harmony of machine power and human strength, efficient, skilled, and unrelenting. The sharp chainsaw slices cleanly through the trunk, a decisive cut that marks the fall. Immediately, a thick cable is secured tightly around the heavy timber. A worker carefully uses a steel chainsaw to cut into a large tree trunk adjacent to the houses. Each cut is carefully calculated. Sawdust flies lightly. The tree slowly falls in the right direction to safety. Giant old-growth trees, so massive it would take 2 or 3 adults linking arms to wrap around the trunk, can't simply be felled with a few cuts. First, they must be tamed from above. The lumberjack stands firmly inside an aerial bucket, lifted high by a crane into the dense canopy. Carefully, he trims heavy, thick branches using a roaring chainsaw. One by one, the massive limbs fall away, clearing the upper structure for the final confrontation. With a long, razor-sharp chainsaw, he approaches the main trunk. Each cut is deliberate and powerful. Then comes the crash, a thunderous boom as the ancient tree finally gives in. The trunk is then sectioned into massive rounds. Each log, thick and tall as a man, rests on the forest floor, a testament to precision, raw power, and fearless craftsmanship. A towering tree stands still in the quiet forest. The worker steps in, calmly adjusting the chainsaw with the precision of a master. The engine roars, sharp and decisive. Each cut is calculated, firm, and fearless. Within seconds, the massive trunk begins to tremble, then crashes down, ending its decades-long reign in the woods. In the middle of a steep slope covered with forest leaves and slippery rocks, a worker is holding firmly to the sloping ground with his anti-slip shoes. He is wearing a helmet and noise-canceling headphones, his hands tightly gripping the roaring chainsaw. He begins to cut across the tree trunk, the saw blade digging in bit by bit with a powerful roar. Sawdust flies in the wind, the tree shudders, tilting slightly along the slope. The scene is dramatic, both dangerous and attractive, like a battle between humans and harsh terrain. chainsaw has completed its mission. With one decisive cut, the massive tree crashes down, defeated by the precision of man and machine. The sound of its fall echoes through the forest, marking the end of its life and the beginning of a new journey. Soon after, the freshly cut logs are tightly secured with heavy-duty cables. Cranes, skidders, or winches pull them away from the site, like trophies from a successful conquest. Every cut, every movement is a testament to the precision, strength, and professionalism of a true forestry crew. A breathtaking operation is underway. A towering tree, just meters from the roof, is being brought down piece by piece under the roar of a chainsaw. The operator holds steady. Every cut must be surgically precise. One tiny mistake, and tons of timber could come crashing down. Watch closely. The critical moment is near. Each motion is careful and controlled. The branch starts to crack, just moments before it gives way and drops to the ground. He stays calm, focused, and ready for the next cut. The man seems to be testing his strength against the chainsaw, a battle between man and steel. The sharp blade roars, slicing the thick log into evenly sized sections, each cut clean and precise, like a master swordsman striking with intent. No wasted movement, no hesitation, only focus and practice skill. In a large garden, a tree was uprooted. The worker picked up a long-bladed chainsaw and started the machine. The sawing sound rang out. The long, sharp blade cut evenly into the thick tree trunk. White sawdust sprayed out, and a few minutes later the tree stump was cut off. The man leans in, neatly slicing the log into perfect portions, as if carving up a prized piece of prey. His eyes are sharp, unwavering, locked onto the cut line. The chainsaw snarls with rhythmic growls, a declaration of control, of dominance. Here, hesitation has no place. Each strike of the blade is powerful and intentional. The thick timber yields without resistance, splitting apart as if it had always meant to. Sawdust bursts into the air, and the rich scent of fresh resin fills the space. His every movement is instinctual, swift, efficient, as precise as a Swiss watch. He's fully equipped, protective goggles and earmuffs shielding him from flying debris and the metallic roar of his machine. Amidst the roar of engines and the scent of living wood, one man remains calm, the quiet master at the heart of the storm. In the middle of a deep snow-covered forest, an ancient tree was uprooted and lying on its side on the thick snow. The worker was wearing thick protective gear and a helmet. He tightly held the Husqvarna 560 XP chainsaw, turning it on with a roar. The saw blade dug deep into the trunk of the large tree, layers of white sawdust swirling in the cold wind, creating a harsh but powerful scene. After processing the base, the worker dragged a tape measure along the snow-covered trunk, measuring each section precisely. He quickly marked it, then carefully cut each section with a chainsaw. Each cut was even and decisive. The logs fell lightly on the thick layer of snow, forming a long, neat row in the middle of the white forest. In the middle of a snow-covered forest, a worker wearing tight protective gear and a hard hat walked towards the uprooted tree lying on its side, covered in snow. The Husqvarna 560 XP chainsaw roared in the silence, its sharp blade cutting deep into the cold wood. White sawdust flew out, blending into the misty snow. After cutting the tree trunk, the worker proceeded to trim the small branches that were still clinging to the trunk. Moving carefully through the thick snow, he held the saw tightly, cutting away the dry, tangled branches. The sound of the saw echoed in the snowy forest. The sawdust flying out combined with the cold wind created a scene that was both harsh and attractive. The sharp chainsaw growls in the hands of a skilled worker. Its sound doesn't merely signal the fall of a tree, it echoes the presence of experience, precision, and fearless command. Deep within the forest, wild and untamed, the man stands firm, like a warrior facing nature's test. Every step he takes, every movement he makes, is carefully calculated. The chainsaw rises and falls with astonishing force and accuracy. The engine roars, the tree shudders, and grain by grain, the wood begins to crack until, at last, the massive trunk collapses with a thunderous crash that shakes the earth beneath. In the heart of the log yard, the powerful steel MS-881 Magnum comes to life. This is the break-in test, a crucial moment for any new chainsaw. The machine roars as it slices through thick logs with ease, showing off its raw strength and smooth performance. Operators carefully monitor every cut, every rev of the engine, ensuring everything runs perfectly. This isn't just testing. It's preparation for serious work in the forest. A giant tree towers in the wild, silent and mighty. The chainsaw screams to life, sharp, relentless. Its blade slices clean through the massive trunk, tearing through thick bark like armor. The wood groans, then boom. The colossal tree crashes to the ground, shaking the earth with In a forest blanketed with snow, the ground lies silent and untouched, like a blank canvas. The lumberjack stands firm in the cold, his chainsaw gripped tightly, its gleaming blade waiting for the call to action. A measuring tape hangs at his waist, a symbol of precision and experience. Every cut is calculated, every movement deliberate. With practiced strength, the saw bites down in exact intervals, each strike placing the blade exactly where it needs to be. Sawdust scatters into the air, and a faint mist rises from the frozen timber as it's sliced in the winter chill. Round, uniform log sections begin to emerge, perfectly spaced, perfectly shaped, the product of discipline, mastery, and a deep respect for the craft. The sharp chainsaw screeches as it marks the first incision, tracing the fate of the giant tree. The worker stands firm, eyes intense, scanning every detail. With the precision of an engineer, he carves a triangular notch into the trunk, a deep wedge on one side, carefully defining the fall direction. Every rev of the engine, every screech of the blade is an unrelenting assault. The towering tree is no longer an obstacle. It's an opponent, and the steel is winning. Wooden wedges are hammered in at just the right moment, helping the blade push deeper and smoother, strategic allies in this tactical takedown. Then, crash, the massive tree trembles and falls, its impact echoing like a drumroll of victory. The battle is over. Once again, human skill and power have claimed mastery over nature. The crane lifts the worker high up. He stands firmly in the basket, wearing a safety harness, holding a working chainsaw. He cuts off the top of the large tree that is reaching high into the sky. When the top breaks off, it is tied with a rope and lowered safely to the ground.